when I talk about values, I'm talking about things that matter to you. And over the years, your values may have changed. When you were younger, you may well have had different values to the one you have today. And today, you may have different values than you'll have in a few years' time. And there can be different reasons for that. Life changes, world events happen, things get in the way, and kind of encourage us to reframe the things that feel important at that particular time. But my point is that values aren't static, they are flexible. And so, for example, when you were younger, you may have been focused on making money and having an income and savings and various other things, and there's nothing wrong with that. But as you've got older, you may have found that your attention has turned to family, or it may have turned towards your well-being. And this is why values can be so important, because throughout the day, you will have touch points. You will have moments throughout the day where you will have to make decisions, and those decisions will either take you towards your values or away from your values. In other words, you will either prioritize your values in that decision making, or you will have to sacrifice your values in that moment for any particular reason. And one example of this, and I'm going to use a kind of a playful example, but hopefully you can see where I'm going with this. But one example is, say you've got a value of honesty, which many, if not all of us have, that we want to be truthful and honest in our interactions with others. But you also have a value of kindness. You have a value of caring and compassion and kindness towards others. And then someone walks in, either at work or at home, and they're wearing something that you just do not like. There's something about it that you find yourself judging in that moment. And then they say to you, "What do you think? Do you like my top?" Now, your instinct with your value of honesty might be, "I've got to tell this person, this looks hideous." But on the other hand, you also have values of kindness, caring and compassion. And this is where I make the distinction between values and principles. Values can be fluid, they can be movable. Principles are unshakable. So no matter what happens in life, that particular principle remains the same. And our principles allow us to prioritize in that moment which value will get the most attention or the most energy. So in that moment, although you have a value of honesty, your principle of kindness, caring and compassion takes over, and you might decide in that moment, I'm not going to be brutal about this, but I might offer a level of honesty within that, but done in such a way that is kind and caring. So you might answer, for example, "It's not something I would wear, but I love that you love it." And so that gives you the opportunity to kind of hold on to that value of honesty, but you're prioritizing that value and principle of kindness. And so that's something to have a think about, is, do you have values? Have they changed? What matters to you right now? And do you have principles? Do you have certain values that you will not be moved on, that they are unshakable, and that no matter what, you are going to prioritize and stand by those values? And the reason this matters so much is because it can start to impact our well-being if we don't live in alignment with those values and principles. If, for example, you have a value of authenticity, of integrity, and you find yourself having to compromise or sacrifice values of authenticity and integrity, then that can impact your well-being. And you'll know this yourself if you've ever been in a situation where you've walked away from it and thought, "I should have said this," or "I should not have done that." And that means in that moment you may have compromised something. You may have compromised a value, which meant that you didn't speak up, you didn't speak your truth, or you didn't say what you felt needed to be said in that moment. And again, there are lots of reasons we choose not to speak up, kindness and compassion being one example I've just given. But where you walk away from a situation thinking, "I should not have said that," or "I should not have done that," or "I should have said that," or "I should have done that," then it can be helpful for us to have a think about where we might be compromising our values and our principles, because otherwise that might potentially lead to or impact our well-being and lead to other problems like anxiety, stress and so on. So it's just something to have a think about. What are your values? What matters to you? And what values are unshakable? What would you describe as your principles? And are you making decisions each day which help you stay in alignment with those values that ultimately benefit your well-being?